I was forced to marry a broke thug. And 10 years later, he became a billionaire. The truth was, I was the one who made him rich. In my first life, my older sister ruined me with one cruel move. She drugged me, framed me, and pushed me into marrying the most feared delinquent in our school. A man everyone avoided. His name was Sean. He had no money, no future, and a reputation for violence. People whispered that my life was over the moment I married him. But 10 years later, the world knew him by another name, the god of stocks. He stood at the peak of wealth and power, and I lived in a mansion surrounded by luxury. Everyone thought I was lucky. No one knew the truth. When I opened my eyes again, everything had reset. I was 17 years old, back the exact moment my life first fell apart. And this time, my sister moved faster than I did. I woke up in a dusty physical education storage room, the smell of old mats and metal filling my nose. My head was spinning, my arms heavy, my body weak in a way I knew too well. Someone was breathing hard above me. Sean. His hands were rough, impatient, tearing at my clothes, while his face pressed against my neck. My thoughts were slow, sticky like I was trapped underwater. I didn't need to guess what had happened. I had been drugged. Then it hit me all at once. I wasn't dreaming. I had gone back in time. This was the day everything began. Just as Sean was about to lose control completely, the door flew open with a loud bang. Footsteps rushed in, sharp and frantic. Sean. My sister Jennifer stood there, hair damp with sweat, chest rising and falling as if she had sprinted across the school. Without even looking at me, she shoved me aside and threw herself into his arms, clinging to him as though she was afraid he would disappear. "Don't touch her," she said urgently. "You're mine." In that moment, I understood. She remembered everything too. In my last life, Jennifer had been obsessed with the most popular boy in school. When he chose me instead, her jealousy turned vicious. She slipped drugs into my drink, staged a scene that made it look like Sean had taken advantage of me, and made sure everyone found out. My parents were humiliated. Neighbors whispered. To protect the family's name, they forced me to marry Sean. Jennifer watched it all happen and smiled. What no one expected was that the delinquent she threw away would rise to the top of the financial world. Sean became the public face of an empire that shook markets. People praised my loyalty, my patience, my vision. They said I had bet on the right man. Jennifer, meanwhile, married someone she thought was rich. He lost everything. By the end, she was drowning in debt, watching me from the sidelines, with regret burning in her eyes. I remembered one night clearly. At a family gathering years later, Sean stepped out to take a call. Jennifer followed him. I stood quietly at the end of the hallway and watched as she cornered him, tears streaking down her face, her voice trembling as she begged him to remember the past. She tried to kiss him. He pushed her away without hesitation, his expression cold and distant. "That was a long time ago," he said. When I stepped forward, Jennifer turned on me with pure hatred. She asked why I had everything while she had nothing. I told her the truth. She made her choices. She laughed, then, a strange smile on her face, and said it wasn't over yet. Now I knew what she meant. Back in the storage room, Sean's eyes were unfocused, his breathing uneven. He muttered that something felt wrong. Jennifer cupped his face, forcing his attention onto her, whispering that she loved him. I didn't hesitate. I pulled myself up, fixed my clothes as best I could, and stumbled out of the room while she wrapped herself around him. In the original timeline, she had locked us in there and called our parents to catch us. I remembered the beating, the days without food or water, the forced marriage. That future shattered the moment I walked out the door. That night at home, Jennifer announced she was going to marry Sean. My parents were stunned. They called him useless, a failure, someone with no future. Jennifer smiled calmly and told them he would become the richest man in the country. She claimed she might already be pregnant. Then she casually warned my father about a business partner who would betray him and told my mother to avoid a specific clinic. When both things came true, my parents started calling her lucky, gifted, blessed. Later, she came into my room and forced my face toward the mirror. She mocked my thin frame, my glasses, my worn clothes. She told me Sean had only married me in the last life because he couldn't have her. This time, she said, she would take everything that should have been mine. She talked about billions as if they were already hers. I kept my head down and stayed quiet. She thought I was broken. What she didn't know was this. Sean was never the god of stocks. I was. I was the one who studied markets late into the night, who saw opportunities others missed, who entered early and exited clean. The world knew the name Q. That name belonged to me. Sean was only a shield I put in front, because power attracts danger. As my sister dreamed of wealth through a man, I planned my escape. I would finish school, leave this house, and take my future back with my own hands. I didn't have long to wait before Jennifer started showing her true colors. The very next morning, as I was riding my bike to work, someone blocked my path. Sean stood there with one foot on the curb, his bike angled across the road, his eyes crawling over me in a way that made my skin turn cold. "Going somewhere dressed like that?" he said, smirking. "Didn't know you cleaned up so nice." I swallowed the nausea rising in my throat. In his mind, anything he couldn't fully possess became a challenge. I tightened my grip on my handlebars and told him to move. I had a part-time job at a small grocery store, the kind of place that paid in cash and didn't ask many questions. The owner had given me some of his daughter's old clothes, and for the first time in years, I looked like a normal girl instead of a shadow in my sister's background. Sean leaned closer, clearly enjoying my discomfort, but before he could say anything else, Jennifer rushed in from nowhere and shoved me aside. She wrapped herself around his arm, glaring at me like I was something dirty on the ground. She accused me loudly of trying to seduce her fiancé, of having no shame, of wanting what wasn't mine. Sean played along, claiming I had stopped him and refused to let him leave. Jennifer's voice shook with anger as she warned me to stay away from him. She said if I tried anything again, she would have our father send me off to some remote village to be married to a stranger. People nearby stared. I said nothing and walked away, knowing any defense would only make things worse. When I got home that evening, my room had been torn apart. Clothes were scattered, books dumped onto the floor. Jennifer stood in the living room holding my small tin box, the one where I kept every dollar I earned. She accused me in front of our parents of sleeping with the store owner to get money and better clothes. My father didn't ask a single question. His hand came down across my face so hard my ears rang. Me mother cried and called me a disgrace. Me savings were taken, then my father used his belt until I couldn't stay conscious anymore. I woke up alone in the yard as the sun dipped low. My body ached everywhere. My parents had already taken Jennifer out to buy engagement clothes. No medicine, no food. I dragged myself next door and collapsed near the fence, where my cousin's wife, Sarah, was washing clothes. She panicked when she saw me and helped clean my wounds with shaking hands. Sarah was gentle, quiet, and constantly bruised. She had been married off for a bride price and beaten into silence. In my last life, she didn't survive her 20s. I remembered her funeral. I remembered how useless my wealth felt then. I wouldn't repeat that mistake. I asked her if she had any savings. She hesitated before admitting she had 2,000 hidden away. She thought I needed it for school. I told her I didn't want to take it. I told her I wanted to help her turn it into more. A lot more, she laughed softly. Not mocking. Just tired. She told me to take it anyway and repay her someday. I looked up at the night sky and promised myself she would never die quietly again. From that day on, while Jennifer hovered around Sean like a nurse, guarding a miracle cure, I focused on surviving. I studied in secret and worked whenever I could. Every number I memorized was a step closer to freedom. Money wasn't happiness, but it bought choices, and I needed choices desperately. One Monday morning, I borrowed Sarah's name and set out to open a brokerage account. Halfway there, someone dragged me off my bike in a narrow alley. I hit the ground hard, my bag sliding away from me. A spiked club hit the pavement inches from my face. Arthur stood over me, sneering. He came from a rich family and had been trailing Jennifer like a loyal dog for years. In my last life, she married him after his family collapsed, and they destroyed each other slowly. Now, he kicked dirt into my face and accused me of stealing money, of selling myself for clothes. He grabbed the envelope of cash and mocked me for being pathetic. I started laughing. It caught him off guard. I told him I was happy for my sister, and congratulated him on his upcoming engagement. He stared at me confused. I said our parents were arranging a match for Jennifer before college. Someone she had known for years. Someone who loved her deeply. I told him she was probably preparing a surprise for him in the woods behind the school. His face lit up with hope. He shoved the money back into my hands and ran. I rode away smiling. At the brokerage firm, Sarah waited nervously beside me, overwhelmed by the flashing screens and fast-talking clerks. I told her to trust me. While we were there, I noticed Arthur's father take a frantic phone call and rush out. The fuse had been lit. Arthur found Jennifer and Sean together in the woods. The scene shattered him. He attacked Sean so violently that an ambulance had to be called. At the hospital, accusations flew. Arthur claimed Sean had forced himself on Jennifer. Everyone looked at her, waiting. She hesitated, then chose her future. She said they were together willingly. Sean backed her up, smiling, despite his injuries. Arthur's father tried to pressure her, but she clung to Sean, declaring he would one day be richer than anyone there. Arthur snapped and slapped her. Security intervened. The damage was done. My father panicked when he heard. His business depended on Arthur's family. Jennifer told him not to be short-sighted. She believed Sean was worth everything. Watching from afar, he felt nothing. The stage was set, and the puppet strings were tightening. I thought everything would finally be over after that. But real endings are rarely clean. When I visited Jennifer in the psychiatric ward, I didn't feel satisfaction, victory, or even anger. What I felt was distance, like I was standing in front of a life that no longer belonged to me. She sat on the edge of the narrow bed, hair tangled, fingers twisting the fabric of her hospital gown. Her eyes were unfocused, drifting past me as she repeated the same sentence again and again, insisting that fate had cheated her, that everything she wanted had been stolen. Listening to her, I realized something important. Even if time were turned back again, even if she were given 10 more chances, nothing would change. Jennifer believed the outcome mattered more than the process. She thought remembering the future was the same as earning it. She believed desire was proof she deserved success. That belief had followed her through both lives, and destroyed her twice. Sean's story ended more quietly, just as completely. After being dragged back from the scam overseas, he wandered from city to city, chasing rumors of fast money and easy opportunities. Without someone controlling the direction of his life, without someone forcing discipline where he had none, he fell apart. Every mentor he trusted took advantage of him. Every shortcut he chased led nowhere. The confidence people once mistook for strength curdled into bitterness. He aged fast, not in appearance, but in spirit. He had always been a follower pretending to be a leader, and without someone to follow, he became nothing at all. While their lives unraveled, mine moved forward, steadily, almost quietly. I left speculation behind, and built real businesses, with real foundations, manufacturing plants, logistics networks, service companies that created stable jobs instead of empty promises. I stayed away from interviews and headlines. I learned that visibility attracts trouble, and lasting power doesn't need applause. I let other names take the spotlight while I focused on structure, systems, and long-term growth. Sarah changed in ways that still surprise me. The woman who once flinched at loud voices learned how to negotiate contracts and shut down bad deals. She learned how to say no without apologizing. She failed more than once, doubted herself often, and cried behind closed doors. But she never went backward. Over time, she built a team that reflected her own journey. Women escaping violent homes. Women who had never finished school. Women everyone else had written off. She trained them patiently, protected them fiercely, and paid them fairly. Watching her build a future for others became one of the few things that ever made me feel truly proud. Late at night, when work finally slowed, I sometimes thought about rebirth itself. People imagine it as magic, as a miracle reset. But memory without change is a curse. Information without discipline is useless. I didn't succeed because I remembered what would happen. I succeeded because I was willing to endure years where nothing exciting happened at all. Years of quiet effort. Years of waiting. Jennifer remembered the ending and skipped the work. That was the difference between us. After Jennifer's breakdown, my parents tried to contact me. Their messages were soft, filled with regret and sudden concern. I never responded. Forgiveness doesn't require reopening old wounds. Some doors are meant to stay closed so you don't forget why you walked away. One afternoon, long after everything had settled, I received an invitation with no name attached, just an address and a time. Curiosity led me there. The shop was small and easy to miss, wedged between shuttered storefronts. Inside, the air smelled faintly of paper and instant noodles. The owner greeted me calmly, as if he had been expecting me all along. He confirmed what I already suspected. My rebirth hadn't been an accident. It had been an investment. They watched outcomes, tracked choices, and looked for people who turned opportunity into impact. When I asked why they interfered at all, he gave a simple answer. The world didn't need more rich people. It needed fewer broken ones. When I stepped back into the sunlight, past finally felt distant. I wasn't running anymore. I was simply moving forward, building something meant to last. I thought my involvement with that strange little shop had ended. But fate lingered for one final, almost absurd moment. As if the universe wanted to remind me not to take itself too seriously. Weeks after my visit, long after Jennifer and Sean had faded into memories, I rarely revisited. I sent a check to the shop. He didn't attach a note or ask for anything in return. It wasn't gratitude, and it wasn't fear. It was closure, plain and simple. Inside the shop, Silas was sitting behind the counter, eating instant noodles when the envelope arrived. He opened it casually, expecting nothing more than a polite acknowledgement. When his eyes landed on the number written across the check, his expression froze completely. At that exact moment, his elbow knocked over a cup, spilling broth across the counter. Without thinking, he grabbed the nearest scrap of paper and pressed it down to soak up the mess. His partner shouted from the back room the instant she saw what he had done. The paper in his hand wasn't trash. It was the check. The two of them stared at it in horror as the ink began to blur. The amount written there was enough to fund their operation for decades. She demanded he rewind time. Even just a few minutes, just enough to undo the mistake. Silas hesitated, muttering that time reversal wasn't meant to fix carelessness or spilled noodles. They argued in low, panicked voices, torn between principle and survival. Until finally he gave in. Somewhere, in a corner of the world no one noticed, time bent slightly backward. The check was saved. The counter was dry again. Outside, traffic continued. People walked, talked, laughed, and worried about ordinary things. I continued living my life, completely unaware that a tiny private rebirth had just taken place. That was the last one tied to me, and it felt fitting that it happened without my involvement at all. Years later, people often asked how I succeeded. They wanted secrets, shortcuts, something supernatural. I always gave the same answer. I paid attention. I worked when no one was watching. I didn't confuse wanting something with deserving it. Opportunity matters, but preparation decides everything. The future doesn't belong to the loudest dreamers. It belongs to the people who quietly build while others wait for miracles. Jennifer believed she was the main character simply because she wanted to be. Sean believed power would arrive if he waited long enough. Arthur believed money alone made him important. My parents believed control was love. All of them were wrong. I didn't succeed because I was reborn. I succeeded because when I was given another chance, I didn't waste it trying to steal someone else's life. I used it to build my own, piece by piece, until the past finally lost its grip on me.